Hi everyone, welcome back to another Paige the Python video. I noticed this past week that there are a couple colors that we haven't used in our Paige the Python chart yet, so I decided to focus on fairy tales this week by doing retellings of Cinderella. The first picture book that we read together was the most traditional version of Cinderella. It's not quite the Grimm's fairy tale version, but it's pretty close to the original story, keeping out some of the gory details in the original. But my students really liked the watercolor kind of soft images in this version of the story. And of course, it's going to count as a fairy tale. The next version that we read to compare was Korean Cinderella. This kept a lot of similar story elements, but also had a lot of cultural elements that were swapped out as well. This was a really interesting way to get students to compare the story elements and say what was the same and what was different between the two versions that we read together. From this point on, we got a little bit sillier in our Cinderella retellings. Our next one was Cinders, a Chicken Cinderella by Jan Brett. My students really loved this one just for the novelty of the fact that all of the characters were chickens. But this one, of course, was a favorite. We love Jan Brett. I think we've had a Jan Brett book almost every week so far this year. Not on purpose, it just worked out that way. But this was a very silly version to add to our collection. And then ending with the goofiest version of Cinderella I found in our library, we read Bigfoot Cinderella. This one was very silly, got a lot of laughs, and is definitely a new favorite in our library. And just as kind of a bonus round this week, I do first chapter read-alouds with my older students. So just to keep the theme going, we read the first chapter of Ella Enchanted together to get them hooked on this book. Since all of our books today are going to count as fairy tales, they're all going to get the same color stripe, but let's go ahead and add those. And here she is after those 4 fairy tale stripes. Check back next week to see what we read next.